thrown out with only $8 and a trash bag. Now my family wants a place in my $850,000. With house after years of lies, I was 17 the night my life fit into a trash bag. Not a backpack, not even a cardboard. BOXA, black plastic trash bag. That still smelled like the coffee grounds my stepmother had dumped in it that morning. My father stood by the door, arms crossed, jaw tight, like he was doing something difficult, something noble, something he would later rewrite in his memory, as necessary. Stepmother did not bother pretending. She held the door open like she was airing out a bad smelly $. That was what my father pressed into my palm like a tip. You leave for a waiter you never planned to see, again $8 and a sentence. I would replay for years. You need to learn responsibility. Remember looking past him into the house, the hallway light glowing, the family photos on the wall, vacations. Christmas mornings, birthdays. I slowly understood I had already been erased from my little stepbrother watched from the stairs, not confused, not upset, just curious. The way you watch someone else's dog being taken away. No. One hugged Menno, one asked where I would sleep. The door closed and that was it. The sound of the lock sliding into place was the last vote. I walked to the bus stop because I did not know where else people go when they are no longer want to die. Counted the money 3 times. $8 would not buy responsibility or forgiveness or a motel room it bought. Timed that first night, I learned the shape of cold pavement and how loud the world becomes when you are alone inside it. Learned how quickly hope starts bargaining. Maybe dad will call, maybe he will come looking, maybe this is just a lesson in lessons. NT High did not. Call morning, arrived anyway. Days blurred into months, months into years. I worked anywhere that would let me stand still long enough to prove I would not disappear. Dishwashing, moving boxes, cleaning construction sites, the kind of jobs where your body hurts so loud, it drowns the past. I slept in shelters, sometimes cars, sometimes floors that came with conditions. Time someone asked about my family, I built smaller and smaller answers until I had one sentence: we're, and not class. Watched other people receive help like it was oxygen, like something natural and endless, and I trained myself not to need it. Needing had gotten me $8. I got my GED at night because a volunteer at a center told me I was too sharp to stay. Buried. No, one had called me sharp. Before I held on to it like proof I existed. College seemed impossible until I learned impossible was mostly paperwork and exhausting scholarships, loans to jobs, coffee that tasted like regret. I survived. I studied finance because numbers made sense. Numbers did not wake up and decide they were done loving you. By 25, I was working at an investment firm. By 30, I had my own clients. By 32, I had something I never imagined I would touch. Against stability. Bought a house the year I turned 30, for not a mansion, not a palace, but when I signed the papers and the keys landed in my hand, I had to sit in my car and breathe through the shaken $850,000. Every wall, every window, every quiet square foot screamed the same thing. You stayed. I filled the place, slowly, careful not to crowd it like it might change its mind. Die. Hosted coworkers. Sometimes learned how to cook things that took longer than fear. I even planted a tree in the backyard, something meant to outlive me. Family never called. Not on birthdays, not on holidays, not when promotions happened, not when the world shut down and people remembered each other out of panic. Can become comfortable if you wear it long enough. Then one afternoon my phone rang with a number I did not know but recognized immediately. Funny how the body remembers threats faster than love. Lie. Let it go to voicemail. My father's voice arrived, older, softer, wrapped in a kindness that had not existed when I needed it. Hey kid, been a long time, we should talk. We laughed out loud in my empty kitchen. The message continued. He hoped I was well. He had heard I was doing very well actually. He said it with pride, like he had watered. May deleted it 2 days later. He called again. Then my aunt messaged me on social media telling me families should not stay broken, forever broken. Implied accidente. Week passed before curiosity betrayed. May answered. My father cried within 30 seconds. Listened, the way you listen to a salesman explain features you will never buy. He talked about regret, about mistakes, about how hard things had been. After I left, I almost admired the construction of it. Then came the turn. They were in trouble. Bill's job lost, the house needed repairs. My stepbrother had a baby, there was not enough room. Everyone was overwhelmed. Walked through my living room while he spoke my socks, silent against polished wood floors. The tree outside, tall, now steady, said he wanted to visit, see me, maybe stay a little while, reconnect, rebuild. Stay. The word sat between us like a loaded weapon. How long? I asked. Just until we get back on our feet, he said. Families help each other. I remembered the bus stop, the $8. The look. I asked him if he remembered what he gave me the night I left. He hesitated, then said, we did what we thought was best for who. He did not answer, but he kept talking about the baby, about how wonderful it would be for everyone to be together. Under one roof, my roof. I told him I would think about each. After we hung up, I stood in the quiet house and felt something I had not allowed myself to feel in years. Hunger with teeth. That night, more calls came. My stepmother this time, syrupy warm, telling me she always believed I would be successful, telling me she bragged about me to friends. I asked her why she had not called once. She said she did not want to disturb my life. I almost thanked her for that mercy. My stepbrother texted me photos of his daughter. She had my father's eyes. He wrote, she deserves to know her uncle deserves. I stared at the word until it lost meaning suddenly. Relatives who had forgotten my existence were liking my posts, commenting hearts, inviting themselves into a narrative. where they had never stood beside me in the rain. Should have blocked them. Instead, I kept reading because some part of the abandoned kid still wanted proof that maybe this time someone would choose me. Without needing something, but every message curved back to the same place. Space, your house is big. We can help with groceries. It would only be for a tie. Walked into the spare bedroom that night and tried to imagine them in it. My stepmother's perfume in the hallway, my father's coffin. The mornings of baby crying through walls I built to keep history out. I did not sleep the next day. My father sent me a final message. We're coming to see you this weekend, not asking, telling like the door had never closed. I looked around my home, my earned, impossible, fragile, beautiful home, and felt the old pavement under my back. I typed a reply, then erased it, then typed another. My hand shook, but not from fear. From memory, I pressed send, and a minute later, my phone began to ring again. The screen lit up with his name again. Dad, I had changed it in my contacts years ago, from father to his first name, like that might shrink the damage he could do, but seeing it pulse across the glass still made my chest tighten. The same old while. It ring, it stopped, then my stepmother, then my aunt, then a number. I did not know which I knew meant a cousin or a family friend or someone who had recently been handed my success like a lottery ticket. They felt entitled to scratch. I turned the phone face down on the counter and walked outside. The evening air was cool, my tree shifting gently in the yard. Steady-rooted, unafraid of who might try to stand beneath it. Envied that, when I came back in, there were 6 voicemails he listened to. None of them. Instead, I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen island staring at the staircase leading to the second floor, the rooms waiting clean, neutral, unclaimed. They saw opportunity. I saw invasion. I remembered what it had been like to live with them, the constant evaluation, the way kindness came with invoices, the way every favor turned into future leverage. If they moved in, they would not leave people who can push a child out with $8. Do not suddenly learn boundaries. They would unpack themselves into my life, and then they would tell me it had always been theirs. I knew this knowing did not make it easier, because under the anger, under the adult logic, there was still that 17-year-old at the bus stop whispering, maybe this is how you finally get them. Because I hated that kid. I loved that kid. I went to bed without answering anyone and dreamed of doors that would not lock. In the morning they were still calling. I made coffee, watched sunlight spill across the counters, and tried to remember that I had built this piece deliberately like you. Build a wall brick by brick. You do not open gates for people who arrive with bulldozers. At 9:30 there was a knock at my door. Not a polite knock, a confident one, the kind that assumes ownership. My heart began to race before my mind caught up. They said weekend. They did not say which day. I walked to the entryway, slowly, each step heavy with the past, climbing up my spine through the frosted glass. I saw shapes more than faces, luggage, outlines, movement. They had brought luggage, of course they had. Unlocked the door, but kept the chain on, opening it just enough to see them clearly. My father smiled, like we were surprising each other at a restaurant, instead of replaying a trauma. There he is, he said, voice bright to bright. My stepmother stood beside him, already scanning the interior, calculating square footage, her smile professional, rehearsed behind them. My stepbrother shifted a diaper bag on his shoulder. A woman I barely recognized stood next to him holding the baby. Had not been invited to his wedding, but here was the result of it, blinking at me in a car seat. We drove all night, my father said. Thought we would get an early start, beat traffic. You said weekend. I replied, it's the weekend. My stepmother jumped in cheerful. I felt the chain against my palm, cool, grounding. What do you want? I asked, though I knew my father's smile faltered for half a second, then recovered. We talked about this, son. We just need a little time, a little help until things settle. He leaned forward, trying to see past me into the house. You have plenty of room, he added gently, as if space was generosity. Looked at the suitcases again. 3 large, 2 small, a folded crib. This was not a visit, this was relocation. I imagined them flowing through the rooms, claiming drawers, adjusting thermostats, criticizing paint, rearranging my routines, until I became a guest in my own rescue story. My stepmother reached toward the door. Can we come in, she asked already. Stepping, I tightened my grip. No, the word landed harder than I expected. Silence followed, confused, offended. My father blinked. No, he repeated like he had misheard you. Can't come in, I said again, forcing my voice steady. We need to talk. First we did talk, he replied, irritation creeping in. You said you would think about it. I didn't. I am still thinking. My stepbrother sighed loudly, shifting weight, the baby beginning to fuss. Come on, man, he said. We are exhausted. I almost laughed at the luxury of being tired. I had been tired for 15 years. My stepmother lowered her voice, intimate, like we were Alice Stone. Make this harder than it needs to be. Sweetheart, families support each other. There was against support, such a pretty word for unpaid debt. I met her eyes. Where was that support when I was 17? Her face changed just slightly, annoyance flickering before sympathy replaced it like a light switch. We all made mistakes, she said. Mistakes I wondered if she would call. If it had happened to her son. My father rubbed his temples. Can we please come inside? He asked. Neighbors might say. Yeah. Almost thanked him for reminding me this time. I was not the one being sent away. In shame I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so they could not glimpse the life they wanted to occupy. We are not moving you in, I said. Not today, not next week, not until we decide what this actually is. What is there to decide? My father snapped, the patience cracking. You are doing well. We are not. It is temporary. Temporary, I repeated, like I was tasting poison. How temporary was A.O.? Pinned his mouth, then closed it. My stepbrother muttered something under his breath about ungrateful. I felt something calm settle over me. They still believed. I owed them years of silence, and they still believed. Blood worked like gravity, always pulling me back to them no matter how far I had climbed. My stepmother crossed her arms. We raised you, she said. You housed me, I answered. Raising requires care. Her cheeks flushed. My father looked suddenly older than I remembered. So that is it, he said. You were just going to abandon us. Word hit like a slap, almost impressive. The audacity of Ethe breathed in. Slowly you taught me how. The baby began to cry louder, now sharp, Desperate, confused by adult failures, for a moment I almost surrendered just to quiet it, but then I saw the future, the endless compromises. The way my no would rot into maybe, then yes, then why are you so difficult? I shook my head. I am willing to help, I said finally. Relief flickered across their faces too quickly, but not like this, I continued. We'll pay for a hotel for a week, maybe 2, while we talk about boundaries, expectations, timelines. They stared at me like I had suggested. Exile hotel, my stepbrother repeated, offended. You want us in some motel while you rattle around in this place? Alone, yes, I said, because this place is my father's mouth tightened. We are not strangers, he said. I looked at him and felt something close to grief. I replied, and strangers knocked before entering. Cars passed at the end of the street, people living ordinary mornings, unaware of the small war happening in my driveway. My stepmother whispered something to my father. Urgent, I caught pieces. Pride. Ridiculous. After everything, finally, he turned back to me. We did not come all this way for a hotel, he said. Then you should not have come without permission. I answered. The baby cried. Hard. My stepbrother glared at me like I had personally betrayed his daughter. Maybe I had, but I had once been someone's crying child too, and that had not saved Mimi. Father picked up one of the suitcases like the decision had already been made. We will stay, and you will calm down, he said, moving toward the door. Stepped in front of him. No, you will not. For a moment, we stood there, years colliding, neither of us willing to blink. I realized then, something new, something powerful. He could not make me do anything anymore. The understanding changed the air. Put it down, I said quietly. He searched my face, perhaps for the frightened boy who used to retreat. He did not find him. Slowly, angrily, he lowered the suitcase. So, what now, he asked. Now, I repeated. Now, we figure out whether you want a relationship or just real estate. They did not answer, and I knew from their silence which one frightened them more. Weeks passed like a tense standoff, each morning heavier than the last. I let them stay in the hotel I had booked, not because I wanted to be nice, but because I wanted boundaries that didn't include my home as collateral for their mistakes. Phone calls slowed, then stopped. Finally, I realized the lesson I had been avoiding all these years. Some people never change, and love doesn't always come with a return policy. One evening, I sat alone in my kitchen, the house quiet except for the ticking of the clock and the faint rustle of leaves outside. I remembered the black trash bag, the $8, the bus stop that smelled like concrete and rain. And then I thought about my tree, the one I had planted the first spring after I moved in, strong, rooted, and growing upward despite storms, frost, and neglect. I smiled. That tree, unlike people, did not take, it only grew. And that was my answer. A week later, my father called one last time. I did not answer. My stepmother texted, "We just want family." I stared at it, thumb hovering over the keyboard, and deleted it. I would not be trapped in their idea of family, the one that had abandoned me, left me to survive on $8, and then returned, expecting hospitality as repayment. I realized my true family was not who shared my blood, but who respected my life, my choices, and my boundaries. My real family was the friends who checked in, the mentors who guided me, the coworkers who treated me like I mattered, not like an ATM, not like a placeholder, not like a ghost to be summoned when convenient. From that day forward, my home remained mine. I locked doors with pride, not fear. I filled it with laughter, not guilt. I invited people who belonged and left behind those who only demanded. The past remained a memory, sharp and vivid, but it no longer dictated the present. I learned the hardest lesson there is. Forgiveness is not permission. You can forgive the people who wronged you without letting them live in your life or in your home. Survival isn't about what they did to you. It's about what you choose to do for yourself after the storm passes. And sometimes, the bravest act of love is saying no. Boundaries are self-respect in action. Family does not always mean unconditional access. Protect your peace, honor your journey, and never feel guilty for keeping your home in. Your life safe from those who have proven untrustworthy. Have you ever faced a situation where someone thought they could take advantage of your success or kindness? If you've gone through something similar, comment your story below. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and share it with your friends for more dramatic real-life Reddit stories.